Both pilots passed out at 30,000 feet. The plane had 160 people on board. No one knew what to do. Then a 12-year-old girl stood up, walked into the cockpit, and took the controls. What happened next will shock you completely. This is her story. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Sarah Ahmed was not a normal 12-year-old girl. While other kids her age were watching TikTok videos and playing mobile games, Sarah was studying airplanes. Her bedroom walls were covered with posters of Boeing jets. Her bookshelf had thick aviation manuals. Every evening after school, she opened her flight simulator on her laptop and practiced flying. She had practiced emergency landings hundreds of times. She had practiced engine failures, bad weather, and even pilots blacking out, but only on a screen. Sarah's father, Imran Ahmed, worked as an accountant. He was a simple, hard-working man. He never understood his daughter's obsession with planes, but he always supported it. He bought her books. He took her to the airport just to watch planes land. He let her stay up late watching aviation documentaries. Sarah's mother had passed away 3 years ago after a long illness. Every year on her death anniversary, Sarah and her father would travel to Karachi, her mother's hometown, to visit her grave and spend time with family. This year, they were flying from Islamabad to Karachi on a commercial flight. The aircraft was a Boeing 737-800. Sarah knew this plane very well. She had studied its cockpit layout. She had read its emergency procedures. She had landed it in her simulator more than 300 times. They boarded the flight just after 9 in the morning. Sarah took the window seat. Her father sat beside her. She pressed her face against the glass and watched the ground crew doing their pre-flight checks. She noted the engine positions. She counted the emergency exits. She looked at the cockpit windows from outside. "You are doing it again," her father said, smiling. "Doing what?" Sarah asked. "Studying the plane instead of just sitting in it like a normal person." Sarah smiled and said nothing. The plane taxied to the runway. The engines roared. The aircraft pushed forward and lifted off smoothly. Islamabad disappeared below. The sky was clear and blue. The plane climbed steadily. Everything was perfectly normal for the first 25 minutes. Then something changed. Sarah noticed a flight attendant walking very quickly toward the cockpit. The woman's face looked tense and worried. She knocked on the cockpit door. No answer. She knocked harder. Still nothing. She used the emergency key and opened the door. She stepped inside. A few seconds later, she came rushing back out. Her face was completely white. She walked fast down the aisle and spoke quietly to another flight attendant. Sarah heard the words clearly. Both pilots. Not responding. Unconscious. Then the senior flight attendant picked up the intercom and spoke to all passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a situation. Is there anyone on board with flying experience? Please come to the front immediately." The cabin went completely silent for 1 second. Then the panic started. People began talking loudly. A woman screamed. A man jumped up from his seat. Children started crying. Sarah turned to her father. Her heart was beating fast. Her hands were cold, but her mind was very clear. "Dad," she said, "I can fly this plane." Her father looked at her. "Sarah, you are a child." "Dad, listen to me carefully. I have flown this exact aircraft more than 300 times in my simulator. I know every button in that cockpit. I know the emergency checklist. I know how to contact air traffic control. Someone must go into that cockpit right now. There is nobody else. I can do this." Imran Ahmed looked into his daughter's eyes. They were not scared. They were focused and completely steady. He had never seen her look like this before. He slowly nodded. "Go," he whispered. "Go, Beta." Sarah unbuckled her seatbelt and walked to the front of the plane. The senior flight attendant, whose name tag said Amna, looked at her with total confusion. "I can help," Sarah said clearly. Amna shook her head. "You are a child. Please go back to your seat." "I know this aircraft," Sarah said calmly. "Boeing 737-800. I know the cockpit layout." I know the radio frequencies for emergency communication. I know how to use the autopilot and how to talk to air traffic control. There is no one else on this plane who can do this. Please let me try." Amna looked at the frightened passengers. She looked at the closed cockpit door. She looked at this small, calm 12-year-old girl standing in front of her. She made her decision. "Come with me," she said. Sarah stepped into the cockpit. Both pilots were slumped in their seats. The captain's head was resting forward on his chest. The co-pilot was leaning against the side window. The instruments were blinking. The autopilot was still on, keeping the plane level in the air. But the aircraft was slowly drifting off course. Without correction, it would soon be a serious problem. Sarah sat in the co-pilot's seat. Her feet barely touched the rudder pedals. The seat was large and the cockpit smelled of coffee and electronics. But the instrument panel in front of her, she knew every single part of it. She scanned everything quickly and carefully. Altitude, 30,000 feet. Airspeed, 460 knots. Autopilot, engaged. Heading, slightly off course. Fuel, normal. Good. She had time. She did not panic. She picked up the radio headset and put it on. She pressed the push-to-talk button. "Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Flight PK-302, Islamabad to Karachi. Both pilots are unconscious. I am requesting immediate emergency assistance. Over." Silence. She tried again on the emergency frequency 121.5. "Mayday, mayday. Flight PK-302. Both pilots have blacked out. I am at the controls. I have simulator training. I need step-by-step guidance. Over." A voice came through the headset. It was calm and professional. "Flight PK-302, this is Karachi Control. Say again. Who is speaking?" Sarah spoke slowly and clearly. "My name is Sarah Ahmed. I am 12 years old. Both the captain and co-pilot have blacked out. I am seated in the cockpit. The autopilot is currently engaged. I have trained on this exact aircraft in a flight simulator for 3 years. I am requesting emergency landing guidance. Over." There was a pause. Sarah could imagine the people on the other side of the radio staring at each other. Then a strong, steady voice came through. "PK-302, my name is Controller Hassan Malik. I am going to help you land this aircraft. Do not panic. You are not alone. Can you confirm your altitude and heading?" "Altitude 30,000 feet. Heading 185 degrees. Drifting slightly left. Autopilot is holding." "Good. You are doing well, Sarah. First, let us fix the heading. Find the heading selector on the mode control panel in front of you." Sarah looked at the panel. She found it immediately. "Found it," she said. "Set it to 190 degrees. Turn the dial slowly to the right." She turned the dial. The aircraft banked very gently and corrected its course. "Good. Heading corrected. Now listen carefully. We are going to bring you down to Karachi Airport. It has a long runway and emergency crews are already moving into position. I will guide you every single step. You only need to follow my instructions. Can you do that?" "Yes," Sarah said. "I can do that." In the cabin behind the cockpit door, flight attendant Amna was doing her best to keep the passengers calm. She told them the situation was being handled by a trained person. She did not tell them it was a 12-year-old girl. She asked everyone to put on their seatbelts and stay seated. Some passengers were praying. Some were crying quietly. Some were holding the hands of strangers sitting next to them. Imran Ahmed sat very still in his seat, eyes closed, lips moving silently. Back in the cockpit, Sarah worked through every instruction Hassan gave her one by one. "Sarah, begin your descent. We want to bring the aircraft down to 20,000 feet first. Pull back the throttle levers slightly, both together very gently." She placed both hands on the throttle levers and pulled them back slowly. The engine noise reduced slightly. The nose of the aircraft dipped gently. The altimeter needle began to move downward. "Airspeed is 440 knots. Descending through 29,000 feet," she reported. "Perfect. You are doing exactly right. Keep the descent rate at around 1,500 feet per minute. Watch the vertical speed indicator. Sarah watched the instrument. She made small corrections. Her hands were steady. Then a warning light came on. It was amber-colored. It was the cabin altitude warning light, the pressurization warning. Sarah immediately understood what this meant. She had studied this in her simulator training. Low cabin pressure, hypoxia, loss of oxygen to the brain. This was why both pilots had blacked out. The pressurization system had failed silently while they were flying at 30,000 feet, and the pilots lost consciousness before they even realized what was happening. "Controller Malik," she said, "I have an amber cabin altitude warning light. The pressurization system has failed. This is what knocked out the pilots." Hassan's voice was calm. "Yes, Sarah, that is our assessment too. You are exactly right. First, activate the passenger oxygen system. The switch is on the overhead panel above you. Then find your own oxygen mask near the seat and put it on." Sarah looked at the overhead panel. She found the passenger oxygen switch and activated it. Behind her in the cabin, oxygen masks dropped from the overhead compartments. She heard the muffled sound of passengers reacting. Then she found her own oxygen mask, put it on, and breathed in deeply. The clean oxygen made her feel sharper and more alert. She also placed oxygen masks carefully over the captain and co-pilot. It might help them regain consciousness. "Oxygen activated for all," she reported. "Well done, Sarah. Excellent work." The aircraft continued descending. 25,000 feet. 20,000 feet. Outside the window, the landscape of Pakistan spread below. Dry brown hills, patches of green farmland, the long gray line of roads. In the distance, Sarah could see the blue of the Arabian Sea. Karachi was getting closer. "Sarah, Karachi Airport is now 60 kilometers ahead. We are going to line you up for a straight approach to runway 25L. It is a very long runway. Emergency vehicles are already in position. We have cleared all other air traffic from the area. You will be the only aircraft in the sky." "Understood," Sarah said. "Reduce speed to 250 knots. Continue descent to 10,000 feet. She adjusted the throttles. She watched the speed indicator fall slowly. She monitored the altitude. She kept the heading steady. Then the captain made a sound. A low groan. Sarah glanced over. Captain Khalid was stirring. His eyes opened slowly. He looked around the cockpit in total confusion. He looked at the instruments. He looked at Sarah. He blinked several times. "Captain Khalid," Sarah said clearly, "you blacked out. Cabin pressurization failed. I have been flying the aircraft. We are on approach to Karachi. Air traffic control is guiding us. The aircraft is stable." The captain stared at her. He tried to speak, but his voice was very weak. "Do not try to move yet," Sarah said. "I have this under control." Captain Khalid looked at the altimeter. He looked at the heading indicator. He looked at the speed. Everything was correct. He looked at this small 12-year-old girl in his co-pilot seat, wearing a headset and an oxygen mask, flying his aircraft calmly and correctly. He said nothing for a long moment. Then he said, very quietly, "What is your name?" "Sarah." "You are doing good, Sarah. Keep going. I will watch." The runway lights of Karachi appeared in the distance. Two long parallel lines of white lights cutting through the morning haze above the city. Sarah felt a wave of relief mixed with sharp focus. She was close. She could not make a mistake now. "Sarah," Hassan said, "time to configure for landing. First, lower the landing gear. The lever is on your right side, below the main panel. Pull it down." Sarah found the gear lever. She pulled it down firmly. There was a loud mechanical clunk and a vibration through the whole aircraft. Then 3 green lights appeared on the instrument panel. 3 green lights. "Gear is down and locked," she reported. "Perfect. Now deploy flaps to landing position. Move the flap lever center console step by step to 40 degrees. Do it slowly." Sarah moved the flap lever in stages. With each stage, the aircraft slowed and the nose adjusted. The runway was now very large and very close. Altitude 1,500 feet. Speed 155 knots. You are perfectly aligned with runway 25L. Now reduce engine power slowly. Keep the nose slightly up. When the main wheels touch the runway, press both brake pedals firmly and evenly. You are almost home, Sarah. Sarah pulled the throttle levers back slowly. The engines quieted down. The aircraft sank lower toward the runway. She kept her eyes on the horizon and on the runway lights. She kept the nose just slightly up, exactly as she had practiced hundreds of times. 1,000 feet, 500 feet, 200 feet. The runway filled the entire windshield. 100 feet. Sarah held the controls completely steady. She held her breath. The main wheels touched the runway with a firm, solid thud. The aircraft bounced very slightly. Then the full weight of the plane settled down. The tires screeched on the tarmac. Sarah pressed both brake pedals firmly and evenly. She pulled the throttles fully back. The aircraft slowed rapidly, 150 knots, 160, 30, and came to a complete stop on the runway. She had landed the plane. For one moment, there was total silence in the cockpit. Then the cabin behind her erupted. Passengers were cheering, crying, clapping, hugging strangers. Flight attendant Amna sat down and put her face in her hands and cried. People were saying Alhamdulillah and thank God. And who flew this plane? Who did that? Hassan Malik's voice came through the headset one final time. It was quieter now. Softer. PK-302, you are clear. Aircraft is stopped. Emergency crews are approaching. Sarah, you just landed a commercial Boeing 737 with 160 people on board. You saved every single one of them. That was the most remarkable thing I have ever seen in 20 years of air traffic control. Sarah set the headset down on the console. She looked at her hands. They were shaking now, only now after everything was over. While she was flying, they had been perfectly still. Captain Khalid placed his hand gently on her shoulder. He still looked pale and weak, but his eyes were full of something deep and powerful. How did you know what to do? He asked quietly. Simulator, Sarah said simply. I practiced this every day. He slowly shook his head. He had nothing more to say. The cockpit door opened. Amna looked inside. When she saw Sarah sitting there, small, calm, still wearing the headset around her neck, Amna broke into tears completely. Emergency medical teams came aboard. They helped Captain Khalid and the co-pilot off the aircraft carefully. Both were taken to hospital. Doctors confirmed later that both pilots had suffered acute hypoxia, oxygen loss to the brain, caused by a failure in the aircraft's pressurization system. It was a rare but serious failure. It had happened silently and quickly at 30,000 feet, and both men had lost consciousness before they even noticed anything was wrong. Imran Ahmed was one of the first passengers to reach the cockpit door. When he saw his daughter still sitting in that seat, he walked in and wrapped both arms around her without saying a single word. Sarah buried her face against his shoulder. Only then did she start to cry. Not from fear, but from the exhaustion of carrying everything alone for so long. Mom would have been proud, she whispered. Her father held her tighter and could not speak. Outside, a crowd had gathered at the airport. Fire trucks, ambulances, airport officials, journalists who had received emergency alerts. When Sarah walked down the aircraft stairs and onto the tarmac, someone started clapping. Within seconds, everyone was clapping. A reporter called out, "Is it true a child landed this plane?" Sarah stopped at the bottom of the stairs. She looked at the crowd calmly. "I am 12 years old," she said, "and I have been preparing for this my whole life. I just did not know it." The crowd erupted. In the days that followed, Sarah's story was everywhere. News channels, newspapers, social media. The story spread across the country and then across the world. Headlines read, 12-year-old girl lands Boeing 737 after both pilots black out at 30,000 feet. Millions of people shared her story. Parents showed it to their children. Teachers talked about it in classrooms. Controller Hassan Malik gave a television interview and said, "I have been doing this job for 20 years. I have guided hundreds of emergency situations. I have never once spoken to anyone as calm and as prepared as Sarah was. She was not lucky. She was ready. Captain Khalid recovered fully within a week. He came to Sarah's home and sat across from her at the dining table. He placed a small box in front of her. Inside were his pilot wings, the ones he had worn for 15 years on his uniform. "These are for you," he said. Sarah looked at the wings for a long time. Then she picked them up carefully. "I will keep these," she said, "until I earn my own." Captain Khalid smiled. "You will earn them, I have no doubt." Sarah went back to school the following week. Her classmates treated her differently now. But Sarah was the same, quiet, focused, still with an aviation book in her bag, still opening her simulator every evening. Because she knew this was only the beginning. The sky was not the end of her story. It was only the first chapter. Prepare every day for the moment you do not know is coming. When it arrives, you will be ready.